Garden Report, Josue Pavon in Brooklyn, hanging out. Looks like you're in the press area, right?
Yeah, yes, the corner where the obnoxious fans are, but they're all gone now. They're pretty damn quiet in that fourth quarter.
Pretty damn quiet. Felt like there was a good Celtics crowd there too, Josue.
Yeah, a lot of green jerseys in the crowd for sure.
That's cool. Yeah, the all the Brooklyn hipsters are watching the World Cup. I don't know if they had any time here to make it to the game.
Yeah, they took the day off.
Yeah. So anyway, fair amount to talk about with this game. First, it's one of those I'll get your observations. It's good to win ugly. Seeing that point total for the Celtics, what they finish with? What is it? I'm looking at it right now.
103.
103. Oh my God, 103. That's 3/4 of work. What's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the way this game started out, though, you thought that was going to be a grind, but the Celtics pulled ahead, getting into that second quarter, and they never looked back. And a lot of that had to do with Jalen Brown. I mean, I just thought he had a terrific game. But yeah, no, I mean, before the game started, I was talking to Bobby, and I'm like, oh, look out, everyone. It's going to be Kevin Durant versus Jason Tatum. But I should have said Jalen, right? Like, why didn't I say Jalen? He's the one that's been hot lately. He's the one that's been sort of, when Tatum's not getting it done or he's ice cold as he was Friday night. He's been the one that's been taking over. And biggest reason why that game went to overtime, Friday night against the Heat. And he's the biggest reason why the Celtics pulled ahead against the Nets. I mean, Tatum just couldn't get it going offensively. I thought the Brooklyn Nets did a really good job of throwing bodies at him and making him uncomfortable. Kind of similar to what the Miami Heat did. I feel like Jack Vaughn certainly took a page out of that playbook from Miami. However, this team relies way too much on Kevin Durant to do a little bit of everything. And I think that really blew up in their face in the second half, in a big way.
They do, and there's no doubt, that's just, they are what they are, what this team is. I like, what? I'm a Claxton fan right now. I really like what he's done with this game. I think he's turned things around. He's been a definite bonus for them. Kyrie is kind of one on, one off these days. Just not a consistent. He's not the same. I think the creativity is there, but the shot making is just not as elite as it was in his best days. And I know this is just one game, but I think when I look at this team, it's really all about Durant, and you could still have Durant go off and probably beat this team because there's just not enough of a supporting cast here. And to their credit, this was a game where the Celtics really did put the clamps down on defense. One of my favorite things that they did, I like how they switched it up a little bit defensively, the way they defended Durant in the first half versus what they did in the second half. Started throwing a lot of double teams at him. He wasn't really prepared for it. It wasn't what they were doing the first time. He kind of freaked out. He was used to getting to that spot, rising up and hitting his shots. I even thought they defended him well at sometimes in the first half, and he just hit Durant shots. There's nothing you can do about him. But in the second half, there was hands and there was bodies and there was extra people, and he was going to rise up for a shot, and all of a sudden there were people there, and he had to pass. I mean, we're going to look at Jason Tatum's 9 turnovers tonight, but it's hard to ignore Kevin Durant had 8 turnovers, tonight too. So the Celtics made it hard on him. I think 9 steals was the second most they had this season. 9 blocks is the second most they had this season. Sam freaking Hauser getting up and getting after it for a block. So the Celtics defended well. I kind of tweeted this semi-ironically, Josue. Celtics defense kind of started looking a little bit like last year's Celtics defense, but so did the Celtics offense. So there's a little good, little bad to be taken out of this. And I'll get to what I didn't like after, but what I did like is they put the clamps down. You have a 13-point third quarter. That dooms most teams, but you held the other team to 19 points, and then you just came out, put your foot on the gas, stepped on their throat in the fourth quarter, and that was it, done. So they did what they had to do despite it not being pretty.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that Kevin Durant kind of wanted to pace himself throughout that first half. It seemed like during that first quarter, get guys like Harris going because he's been big for this team throughout the season. Throughout this small winning streak, right? They went into this one winning 4 straight, and Joe Harris had a lot to do with that. But I felt like in the second half, he was like, okay, this is my turn to take over now. Came out, scored, 6 of the first 8 points for Brooklyn. I thought Joe Mazzulla called probably one of my favorite timeouts of the season, just to kind of regroup his team, make sure that this thing didn't get, going down the road of tying or even losing a lead. And that's exactly what they did. They regrouped. Brogdon found Horford in the corner. this team defensively, especially in transition defense, the way they're getting back. I mean, you said it. Sam Hauser getting that block. Al Horford had a couple blocks as well. Jalen Brown. I mean, they're really hustling back on that end of the floor, and it's evident against a team like the Brooklyn Nets that was just trying to play uphill throughout that entire second half. And even when Kevin Durant got going and he tried to take matters into his own hands, they couldn't get this thing to a 2-possession game. You know, the Celtics did a really good job of, again, like you said, putting the clamps on the Brooklyn Nets, but specifically in the transition defense. I mean, that was huge, and that went a long way for the Celtics team for sure.
Yeah, welcoming in Sherrod. Sherrod was trying to find exactly his right spot to broadcast from. He's also in Brooklyn. Bobby Manning's also in Brooklyn. I'm the lone sad loser left behind here.
You said you were coming.
Making cookies. No, I'm baking cookies right now. I might have to go check on him in a little bit. I might have to go check in a little.
I had to get away from Josue. My Wi-Fi wasn't working. Brockton Wi-Fi clearly travels. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You got to be careful, man.
Coming in crystal clear now.
It gets
Listen, I don't know how much you guys have talked about this being the Jalen Brown game, but it was.
Oh yeah.
This is the reminder of Brooklyn. This is what you could have potentially had in a 26, 27-year-old body if you were willing to give up a guy who could pretty much do the same thing that I can do, but I'm younger. I'm going to be doing this a little bit longer than KD. And Durant is a phenomenal player. He's one of the best players still. But Jalen, this felt personal. This game felt very personal, especially when you look at the box score and you say he had 34 points. Yeah, but he got 20 in the first quarter. Who the hell scores 20 points in the first quarter and you're not the number one option? Jalen Brown, that's who.
Yeah, but you knew he wasn't going to go anywhere near 40. You knew it. Like it was like that's what Jalen does.
You know what, though? But Jalen, I think he has these moments where he will do enough to where you're like, okay, Jalen, we know you're kind of a badass in the game. We get it. You can do this. Okay. And he's like, thank you. Now, back to your regularly scheduled Jason Tatum.
But one of these games, I want to see him go for 70. You know what I mean? Like, why stop? You know, and it was amazing. Yeah. I mean, it was a one-man show. It was just freakish. No answer.
He was 9 of 11 from the free throw line, which has been a big complaint of mine. He got it done.
Well, you know what? He's at this point, he's so good at getting to the rim that even when he's shooting threes, guys are trying to contest him. He got fouled on a three-point shot. How many times does Jalen Brown get fouled on a three-point shot? You usually give him that shot. But Josue, you were talking, I think, a little bit about just their defense. And I ran into a scout from another team a few minutes before I came down here, and we were just talking about that. And he said, you know, this Celtics defense, what he saw tonight is very reminiscent of what you saw down the stretch last season. It's like they've been waiting to unleash this hellish defense for just the right teams, just the right moment. He pointed out how there was a period where Kevin Durant went from being guarded by Jason Tatum to Jalen Brown to Derek White to Al Horford in one possession. It's just like, where exactly does he have that I got this significant advantage? He's good, no question about that, but he doesn't have the mismatches that he's used to when you're running pick and roll and switches are made. And the scary part about it is that last line of defense that takes away any mistakes that the front line makes, Rob Williams, he's not even out there yet. This was one of their more impressive wins because of the quality of opponents that they're playing with two dynamic guys that can go out and get you 50. And the fact that they never let either one of them get into any real kind of flow or rhythm.
They did not. This was, touching on a couple things you said. I do wonder how much Jalen, I'm curious if anybody talks about it in the post game, is, you spend an entire summer thinking like, everyone thinks that this guy, like, Celtics would be crazy not to trade me for him. Not just me and a lot of other stuff just for this one guy. I'm not even good enough, straight up. It's me and a whole bunch of stuff to get him. And the Nets don't even want it. They don't even want me, Like, that's got to be in there somewhere for sure. He's said it. He's still holding on to stuff from draft night when Josue in his Celtics hoodie booed the choice,
No, lies. That was a big Jalen guy. Get out of here.
When he's there and he's boo and Wick's getting booed. He's got a massive chip on his shoulder, so that stuff's great. I love that he brought the good handles tonight. 0 turnovers. 0. Okay.
He was doing that spin move a lot of the time.
He was doing
the turnovers. Yeah.
He was doing stuff that ends up in turnovers sometimes, right. And it didn't happen at all tonight, which is great. But yeah, I do feel like the Celtics kind of kick it up a notch when they play these types of guys. It's the play your heroes game. You look up to Durant, you look up to Kyrie. They still respect them. They want those guys' approval like crazy, but they also want to go out there and beat them really bad. I remember we talked about in the early days of those guys, especially like Tatum and Brown, that they were a little awestruck. They might have a good game, and they were just really like, do those guys like me? Did they say something nice about me post-game? But they didn't go out. Josue always talks about the Tatum game in LA when he has that big 49-pointer and they lose, and he's acting like he won the Super Bowl after, and that's a few years ago. Totally different mentality now. Now it's like it was almost disrespectful what they were doing to Durant with the steals and the strips. And he looked like an old man trying to chase him down, like, ugh, they got me again. They attacked him. They went after him. And
that one in the fourth quarter where he basically him and Jalen, it's best man gets the rock. And Jalen easily swooped in for that, had the uncontested dunk, timeout Brooklyn. And and again, I don't want people to get this impression that people are crapping on Durant. Durant is still a top 10 player in this league, which again, that there's no question about that. But the gap between him and a guy like Jalen and a guy like Tatum isn't nearly as massive as people thought. And I think these are the kind of games where you're reminded that Durant is still that guy.
Yeah.
Don't act as if Tatum and Brown are just some chumps that are just trying to, earn their way in the league. They're here. They've arrived. They're good. And Durant knows this.
I would like to go once again on record for all of the people out there who say that I hate Jalen Brown. I was adamantly against the Durant trade because, again, you're not giving up. I think Durant has the cliff is coming within a year or two. He's still unbelievable. He's an elite shot maker, and his defense is honestly really solid. I think he would have been terrific here. I think you could win a championship if you switched it out, but then what? I think you're mortgaging a lot for what you're hoping is 2 good years, as opposed to trying to build something that might keep you at the top of the league for 5. You're trying to be Golden State. That's what you're trying to do here. Okay. Right. It's not mortgaging the future for that one title and you got it and you're happy. And then who cares what happens after that? You're trying to become the Warriors. You want to win 3 out of 5. You want to be there 4 out of 6 years. That's what you want to do with this core, with this group that you've got locked in going into the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years. You don't want to think about selling it all for just one shot at a title and a 35-year-old guy coming off a major injury a couple of years ago, hoping that he's got a couple good years left in him. He probably does. I just think it's insane to think that you're going to give away somebody in their prime, even if Durant is still clearly a little tick above Jalen Brown in terms of where he is. It doesn't take much. Durant falls this much, Jalen climbs this much, and they're on the same plane. It's not that big, and that's more likely than not to happen just based off of their age and current trajectory. That's just so I don't know. I never really understood the obsession. I actually think most Celtics fans were pretty adamantly against doing that trade.
Yeah, and they should be, because at the end of the day, the age, the fact that these guys are under contract, and the fact that at the moment when everyone expected this team to fall, and that was it, they were a 500 team, that it was time to split those two up, they turned it around, they pushed it all the way to the NBA Finals, and Jalen, even though it was by a little, showed up at the NBA Finals, right? I mean, out of everyone from the Celtics team, I felt like that was part of the narrative as well. Like, if you're Jalen Brown, you're like, well, wait a minute, like, I played my ass off in that postseason. I'll play Tatum in some regards, and still it's like, and look, I never looked at the situation as Jalen wanted to always be like the top guy over Tatum or whatever. Like, there was some kind of rivalry between those two, but they proved that they can make it work, and they proved that they can only get better considering their age, considering where they are, and considering the fact that the core itself, the Celtics core, was all under contract, and they had enough to go out and get someone like Malcolm Brogdon. And you have, enough to give guys off the bench an opportunity to crack the rotation. So I always looked at it as it's just, let's just see what happens. I know Cedric Maxwell and I used to go back and forth all season long about it. I'm like, can they just finish the season? Let's just see what happens when they lead this team. And of course, we saw what happened, and now we want more. And I don't think anyone was going into the season thinking there's no way the Celtics can get back there and beat the Warriors. The Warriors have their number. I think everyone was giving this team the shot of going back not only to the finals but winning it all and seeing how they were going to learn from that loss. And we're already seeing it right now. Best team in the NBA and beating teams like this, the Brooklyn Nets in their house, I think is significant for sure.
Yeah, and doing so against a team that has a pair of lethal scores, as good a tandem as you're going to find, and doing so without your best perimeter defender. And that's, to me, is what making this team so scary, is that they're able to beat really good teams playing a certain style with one of their main pieces missing, and they're not missing a beat. I mean,
your best perimeter defender and your rim protector. Yeah.
Right. Right. And if you're Brooklyn, you're thinking like, wait a minute, we don't have to deal with Marcus, we don't have to deal with Robin, we still getting that ass whipped? Damn.
Ironically.
And Joe Harris, he's here, right? Yeah, he's damn it. That was one of the missing guys throughout the entire postseason for them.
And Joe had a good game. I thought Joe played good.
Yeah,
I mean, did a lot of good things.
You're missing Simmons, and Simmons actually had found a bit of a rhythm as that small ball five. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Ben Simmons is, that third, member of a big three. He's not that guy, but they were starting to figure out ways to use him. Claxton was more useful than they thought. They were actually They've actually been defending fairly well, and they've been scoring. So they've been playing pretty well. They're not full, but again, you're missing guys, and you're able to shut down these really dynamic scorers. However, this is my not great takeaway from this game. Everyone, is talking about missing Marcus and, his defensive presence. And there's some people in the chat saying they won tonight because they didn't have Marcus out there jacking threes, because that's what people will say. Marcus Smart's presence out there is necessary to get this team to continue to play the way it's played all year, which is both with pace and with movement. And what we got into again tonight with these guys was way too much ISO again. Dribble. And that's the downside to playing teams where you think you've got a matchup. There's matchups all over the floor. You see Curry, you see Harris, you see ding, ding, ding. You switch up against Irving in the post. Take the guy, take him off the dribble. There's so many matchups out there to exploit that what ends up happening is you end up you stuck in ISO ball and just trying to attack 1 against 3, 1 against 4, and you're not doing the stuff that gets you your that's gotten you buckets. It's a really low assist night for them relative to what they've been getting. It was a high turnover night. That's how they get themselves into troubles. They see these matchups, their eyes get big, and they revert back to some of the stuff that they were doing. Who did they do it the other night with? Was it with Miami?
No, Monday night.
We've seen it a couple times, and it's a thing that worries me when it does flash, and that I want to see them get out of for the next game. Get back to what they were doing and get back to moving that ball instead of And again, your two-star. What happens? Your two stars end up with a lot of points, but everyone else is kind of standing around, not really contributing as much. Derek White didn't have much of a game tonight and didn't have much opportunity to make an impact. Obviously, Brogdon had to play heavy minutes. He was the guy who helped settle things a little bit for you. Which was great, but they missed Marcus's presence, I thought, a ton on the offensive side.
Yeah, no question for sure. And I think again, this performance out of Jalen in the first quarter, this team is just very different when they get out to a good start. Even though the very beginning of that first quarter wasn't ideal, the way they were able to turn things around, grab that lead, and essentially never give it back. I think that we've seen that sort of pattern when they can finish the quarter strong and just continue to apply that pressure on defense. And then it usually translates to fast break offense, easy opportunities for guys, and of course the 3-point shot to fall. I mean, they were shooting 50% by halftime, and that wasn't just on the floor, but also from behind the arc. They went 11 for 22. So I mean, the way this team can just turn things around, it's really impressive. I mean, that's just something that didn't happen often last season, right? You sort of saw which direction the game was going. Sometimes it was a story of two different halves for the Celtics, but they're able to correct those mistakes very quickly now, and I think that's a good sign of a championship-like team,
And I think Joe Mazzulla is getting a better pulse for how to manage the minutes. I don't think it's a coincidence that on the night where Derek White isn't as impactful as we're accustomed to seeing, Peyton Pritchard plays a few more minutes than usual. I don't think that was just happenstance. I think Joe Mazzulla recognized that Derek isn't quite giving us what we need tonight, but damn it, Peyton, this is your shot to do your thing. And he went in there, he made some shots, he did some positive things. And that's where, again, this Celtics team is finding ways to grow, to evolve, and still win games. And they're doing it with guys who are kind of maybe in the background, emerging to the forefront for spells here and there, and guys that we haven't seen play or guys that are missing. They're not missing a beat without those guys.
Right.
That's scary.
So that's the thing. And just so everyone is clear on what we're saying, and people are saying things like a win is a win in the chat and blah, blah, blah. It's not, because you're right now you're aiming for something much bigger. Okay. You know, this team is good. This to me is the Patriots, during the good years. Just where are you leaving? You trying to leave? Okay, bye. This is the Patriots. This is the Patriots during the 2.0 Brady, the last 10 Brady years, or even most of them, which is they only play 2 games a year: the conference championship and the Super Bowl. Those are the only ones that matter. Nothing else matters. So it's not the win is a win is a win. You're trying to figure out how good is this team going to be when it's time to play Milwaukee in the conference finals, when it's time to play Golden State in the finals. It's literally all you're judging them against. It really is. That's
the standard they've set for themselves to be judged by. And whether it's fair or not, that's irrelevant. That's just who you are. When you come within 2 wins of winning a championship, and you bring back the core of that group, and you add players who fill some of the voids that your team that fell short was lacking, you're going to have tremendous expectations. And to be very frank and candid with you, John, they've exceeded the expectations I had for them at this point in the season. Even with Time Lord, I didn't think they'd be this good. Because what they're doing now, their offense, even with a loss here and there, they're still on this incredibly unprecedented pace offensively. And defensively, they're going to get better because they have all the makings of an elite defensive team, because we saw that last year.
And that's it. And again, so when Bobby gets on here, that's what I want to talk about. Hold on. The defense doesn't worry me. This team can be a great defensive team when it wants to be a great defensive team. This team can win a lot of different ways. This team right now, the key to this team being the best version of itself is the offense continuing to hum and continuing to flow the way that it was, by using everybody, going deep into that bench. What have we seen a few times in the last few games? Lesser contributions from the bench, and so you really want to continue doing what you're doing because you want everyone to be involved. That's when the team was at its absolute best, when you have that Tatum and the bench boys coming in there. And again, you have Marcus out. That's going to mess with your rotations a little bit there, but they haven't gotten that as consistently as they've gotten. Hauser's cooled off a good bit. They're not getting that consistent bench, the bench scoring that they were getting beforehand. But you just want to see them move the ball, get the 26, 27 assists per night, and just have that offense cooking. But just, again, tonight's one of those nights where you can win a lot of different ways. They won a different way tonight, and that was fine. It was an impressive win on the road against a pretty good team, and one that I felt like they were playing with their food for most of the game, Sherrod. I felt like they could have at various times have put this game away earlier, and then they finally did. And it's just, that's the comfort in this team. It's shocking when they don't finally be like, okay, we're going to be serious and just do this. And then they did. I mean, this was like a 2-possession game, and then 90 seconds later, both teams had emptied their benches. It was over like that,
Yeah, and they've got that kind of explosiveness and
unreal. Defense and offense. They just bang, bang, bang. It was over. Steal bucket, 3, gone. Good night. Bring in the kids.
And what they're doing is that if you're going to beat them, you're not only going to have to play a good game, you're going to have to play the entire game and then some. I mean, they got 3 of the 5 losses, I think, were in overtime.
3 of the 5, right, and 2 to Chicago.
Yeah, and 2 to Chicago. So you're talking about a team that even when they're not playing great, they're still going to compete. They're going to compete at a level that's going to give them an opportunity to still win, even on nights when they're not at the top of their game. And that, again, this is what championship teams do. This is the positioning that they put themselves in. And again, we're having these conversations, and I don't like talking about titles this early, but they're doing everything that you would want a team that's building towards a championship run to do right now. They're finding different ways to win. They've got contributions coming from their top tier players all the way to the end of their bench. You've got guys that you can literally put on mothballs for a week or 2 weeks, throw them into the starting lineup like they did Blake Griffin, and they can actually give you something. That is highly unusual when you're talking about this day and age NBA, where most teams, you're looking to have maybe a couple of guys that can bring it like that. But they've got about 8 or 9 that have that ability to make a significant impact, whether it's scoring, rebounding, defending, passing, whatever is needed. These guys find a way to bring that.
Yeah, they did. We're going to welcome in Bobby in a little bit and keep the show going a little. Once again, Celtics 103-92. We want to tell you very quickly about a couple of sponsors. We got another one joining the party tomorrow. But first off, we're going to tell you about Calm. We've had a few orders flooding in. I actually think it's a great time of year, holiday season. If you're looking for presents you can get people, both of these are actually really good. For someone who's been looking for different methods to relax, you can look to Calm. It's the #1 mental wellness app. Calm.com/garden. If you go there, you get 40% off a premium subscription. We're talking about curated music tracks. We're talking about sleep stories. We're talking about nature sounds, all sorts of different things. And if you keep up with the premium subscription, they keep updating it weekly. It really is a terrific thing. It's a great thing to get your mind and your body right when you're trying to wind down and get yourself ready for bed. So you should definitely go check it out. Go poke around, see if you like it. Calm.com/garden. Receive 40% off that premium subscription. And of course, Athletic Greens. athleticgreens.com/garden. If you go there, you get that on the screen. 1-year supply vitamin D5 free travel packs. Everyone on the Garden Report takes Athletic Greens, one-stop shopping, 75 vitamins and minerals. Boom, into a cup of water, one little scoop. You're done for the day. No need to go shopping for, a million different pills and supplements all over the place. It is, diet friendly. It is lifestyle friendly. It has no sugar in it. It's endorsed by a million healthcare professionals. Really a terrific way to kind of just one-stop shop, get all the things that you need for your body and just lock it in. Like we said, one scoop in the morning and you are good to go. So again, if you go there, we wanted to mention, what does it do? Sleep quality, recovery, mental clarity and alertness, gut health. It's literally everything that you're looking for in all of the supplements that you're probably going around chasing on a regular basis. So again, athleticgreens.com/garden, free 1-year supply vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. Are you at all, Marcus? It seemed like just a one-off kind of little bump tonight, right?
Yeah,
Not concerned?
I'm not concerned about that. I think he'll be fine. If you start really to think about it, of all their core guys as they kind of go through this whole process of load management, he's been the one guy that they really haven't done much of that with. So for him to get a night off every now and then, especially when you look at just the trip that they got coming up, you've got the Devin Bookers of the world and et cetera that you're going to really need him for. This was a good night for him to take off.
It was, and you're gonna have no Horford tomorrow.
Right.
So again, kind of pick and choose your spots. You got a road trip coming. So you've got to, it's the back-to-back here with up in Toronto. So that's going to be something else here. Hold on one second. Trying to clear my graphics here. So yeah, no Al, that's not going to be great for you, but we do have the possibility that Rob is returning. And I know we keep talking about it. And we keep saying, not yet, not yet, not yet. But if you're listening to what Joe said today, I don't know how to interpret this other than when Rob says he's good, we're just going to put him in.
But I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think my understanding is that as far as the protocols that he needs to pass to get back on the floor, he's pretty much there. I think the biggest thing is their concern is that whatever the protocols involve, there's a certain repetition to them, and I think that still needs to happen. Like, he can do everything that I think he needs to do, but he needs to be able to do it with some degree of consistency before I think everyone involved feels comfortable bringing him back on the floor. But there's no doubt that he's going to be – I would be shocked if he's not back at some point on this West Coast trip. I think it just makes too much sense to bring him back, particularly when you know they're going to be games where you're not going to have Al, and you can throw him out there for 10, 15 minutes. You've shown the ability, again, to really be an elite team defensively without him. And so it's going to take a little bit of time for him to get into the flow of how he fits into this new look Celtics team, a team that looks to score the ball more than the teams that he's accustomed to playing for. But there's no doubt that at the end of the day, Rob is going to be a difference maker for this team. I do believe that having him in the mix based on how they've played, he's that one ingredient that could put this team over the top and win the championship. He's that impactful.
Who would have thought? Again, you look back at some of our like discussion preseason and our predictions, and like our thought was Rob might miss the first 2.5, 3 months of the season. They're going to take a while to get right. They're going to be a little bit thin. They might take some losses through some load management. So they might struggle to end up as the 3 or the 4 seed because they're going to give away a lot of games early. Rob's going to take a month or so before he hits his stride. And then really they're not going to start cranking until post All-Star break, into March and whatever. And at that point, they might peak, and who cares who they play because they'll be all clicking on all cylinders. Now we've entered a world in which winning a title without Rob is not only plausible, and now you'd even say they're betting favorites if Rob Williams never played another minute. So what happens if Rob, and again, if obviously you want your good players back, there's certain things that are going to be tough to sustain. Al Horford's load and minutes, he really has become more of a 3-and-D wing as he gets later in his career rather than a big. But again, he's still incredibly useful and incredibly impactful out there because there's just not a lot of teams that have a lot of beef that you're really super worried about right now. Obviously, Embiid is Embiid, but you need Rob. And when you get Rob, oh my goodness. So the possibilities, I just think, are so interesting. And what happens here with this team when he returns, we're all just dying to see it. And I think everyone's going to be patient in the early going if he doesn't look exactly like he's, like himself. But it is really exciting to see, like, what if it's close? What if he's close to himself right out of the gate? Like, where can this team go? I'm almost scared because you almost want to put the whole team in bubble wrap. If Rob comes back and he looks good, it's like, let's just pause and let's just get to the playoffs and go from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, if he comes back and he's looking like top Time Lord player, then I'm a little concerned because at that point you would be looking at a team that looks as completely awesome as can be, and we're not even at Christmas. And that makes me a little bit nervous because the longer those guys are out there before you get to the games that truly matter, like the playoffs and things like that, the more you run the risk of a fluky injury or some type of setback that would just derail the momentum that this group is building up. I do worry about that all the time as I'm watching them play. But on nights like this where I don't think they played their absolute best game as a team, and they're still able to win by 10, those are the games that are actually more encouraging to me than the ones where they beat teams by 25, 30 points, because when they've got to fight and claw and battle to get to win, that builds up a certain kind of toughness that I think this team is going to absolutely need if they're going to make it through the Eastern Conference and get back to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's too long ago. Even the good versions of this team. This is a team that almost pissed away a chance to get to the finals with a late game collapse against Miami. There are a couple of games in that series where they just completely shut down. We saw them even when they were playing really well in important games, just lock up and not be able to get buckets down the stretch and not be able to extend leads or hold leads or put teams away. And now you're seeing completely the opposite, which is just closing time with these guys where they just lock it in. I mean, that little stretch in the fourth quarter there where they put this game away was so freaking impressive because you let them hang around. Oh, it's a 3 or 4 point game and it's okay. Anything can happen. They absolutely slammed the door shut. It was unbelievably impressive the way this went down. We'll bring in Bobby here too. Bobby, we went so long. We've already moved on to Rob, but I want to give you your opportunity to talk about things you like talking about, like all those rays of light coming down on you right now. Are you in heaven?
This is the heavenly Bobby we're watching.
This is heaven out here in Brooklyn.
Are we in heaven?
I actually got some good stuff. I just talked to Kevin Durant before he hopped on the bus. Obviously, he worked out with Jason Tatum last summer, and it was pretty close with him. And Asked a little bit about what's different with him this year. This wasn't his best game tonight, but I love the way he's kind of playing off the team to set himself up. Jalen Brown kind of took over the ball handling while he had some turnover issues tonight, and thought they did a good job of like not getting stagnant trying to attack those mismatches, but setting him up to go at Curry, to go at Joe Harris, get those guys off the court in foul trouble. It was all really good stuff, and that's kind of what Kevin sees is like the team and the system and that 5 out really accentuating what Tatum's able to do. He doesn't really think Tatum's taken a big step, but that's team and the system is really putting him in a good position to succeed.
Wait, he did not think Tatum has taken a big step?
Yeah, no, he says he's always been a great player. It's just that the system and the team's really well suited now to, let him take this leap that he's taking right now.
Well, I'd be curious to know what he would have thought about Tatum in this leap if he were teammates with Tatum. Because I don't think Tatum would be the player that he is this season if he had number 7 next to him, the other number 7.
Yeah, no, you wonder how those two would have fit if that trade ultimately went down. I was obviously an advocate. Jalen's had an up and down season here, but I did eventually turn after all the drama in Brooklyn. And
we welcome you with open arms once you finally came to the light, Bobby.
What a game from Jalen tonight. He's taken big steps this week. I think they were all really impressed with his defense. He made a big leap on that end as well as offense tonight, no turnovers. So this is good stuff from the Celtics, who got down early. John was in the group chat saying, blowout coming. This is going to be a bad one. And they led pretty much from halfway through the first quarter, right through the end. So impressive win. Best defense I've seen them play all year. Obviously, I've been sounding the alarm there. They did great stuff there. So this is a good step as they get into some tougher games. Although I think this will probably be either this or Toronto, I guess, will probably be the most manageable matchup on this trip because it really gets hard as they get further out west.
Yeah. I guess when I think about this game, Bobby, I love the fact that, and I talked about this a bit earlier, that this game, they had to actually get it done defensively. I love the fact that when they made that fourth quarter surge, it was really their defense that was triggering the offense. And that's something that we haven't seen as much of with this group this season. And it reminds me that there's a lot of tricks they got in the bag that they can whip out and beat you with. And that's what makes this team so scary is that there really is no one thing you can take away and feel like, if we get rid of that, we can beat them.
Perhaps size, perhaps second chance points. That's perhaps the only thing where you like, but it happens so seldom to a point that it's like a difference maker because the Celtics
there just aren't that many teams built for that.
There aren't that many teams built for that, and the Celtics are so much better than those teams at so many other things that they can even concede some of those and still not have it be the tipping point in where they go. Obviously, you haven't played Milwaukee yet. Milwaukee's going to be an interesting matchup and see how they match up there. But again, as I said, I'm viewing this as the season begins at the conference championship, and then we'll see what happens after that. Everything up until then is just a tune-up, the way that these guys are playing, obviously. Bobby, Kyrie kind of sucked tonight. Did you talk to him, and what was his attitude after the game?
He was short in the presser. He didn't say too much.
Yeah, because he saw too many of you guys, right? He saw Boston faces, and he's like,
Well, yeah, I don't think he's loving the New York media this year either. So it's just,
But when he saw you guys, I'm sure he shut it down.
Yeah, I didn't get to ask him anything, but he did get asked about his relationship with Jalen and said that they're brothers and they kind of align on everything and how they treat people.
Oh, everything.
That was kind of the most interesting thing he said. But other than that, it was just kind of not nothing too interesting. But yeah, they made it tough on him. I thought the Celtics defense switching caused a ton of trouble for Brooklyn in this one. Even
switching and then the doubles on KD.
Yeah, Malcolm said they were trapping him. They were double teaming him. They were really trying to hit him. And that's what they did in the playoff series. It looked very similar, even without Rob out there. So they were super effective. To your credit, John, like it showed that when they turn it up, they can really get it done on that end. Although I thought the Nets were disruptive at times too in this one. Like I almost look at the Nets, to go to your comment about what the East is going to be like in the playoffs this year. If these two teams met again, I think Brooklyn would be a little better positioned to hang in games and maybe even win one or two this time around, because it feels like they have the Royce O'Neals, and Nick Claxton had some good moments in this one. And then of course you got Ben Simmons at some point coming back. It feels like they're a little better position to guard than last year at this time. And this was obviously a low scoring defensive game.
Again, to take it for what it's worth, Nets defensive rating on the season is about what the Celtics was coming into this game. They're kind of middle of the pack, but over the last 15, 20 games, they've been really they've been a top 5 or 6 team, I think, the Nets overall.
Yeah, under Jacques Vaughn. Give them credit.
They have Jacques Vaughn Nets have played much better defense. So yeah, it's something you didn't really expect from them. They actually are somewhat limited offensively unless Harris is going off here, and Curry hasn't really. I don't feel like he's been right, but it's a two-man
foul trouble tonight.
It's a two-man show. It goes as far as that goes. With those other guys there, and Kyrie was definitely a little bit off tonight. And now you're going back to from what was it, game 1 of the first round of this series. He's now had 4 straight duds against this team where he's completely been contained and or just looked bad.
Yeah, it's got to be the dribbling, right? Like he's not going to be someone who moves off the ball. He can be, but he's going to dribble against this defense that really can set and really can 1 through 5 stay in front of guys. And there's a lot of good individual efforts. I thought Brown was great on him in this one. You obviously had Brogdon playing a lot more. He did a decent job there. Pritchard, Hauser, they came in off the bench and handled switches pretty well. In fact, Pritchard even got Irving a few times on offense with his dribble moves. So good effort up and down the lineup, I think, just to hold their own one-on-one. This was a good opportunity to really get put in isolation and have some guys just dig in and stop people one-on-one. This isn't the Heat doing all the handoffs and screening and Bam's rolls and all that different kind of stuff. Like it's a different kind of offense that you're seeing from the Nets. And it really allows you, once you get through the switches, once you line up, to just, classic basketball, one-on-one, guard your yard, get a stop on a guy. And that's what Brown's great at. That's what some of their guys off the bench who aren't known as great defenders, Pritchard, Hauser, they're good when they're in that position. Like they can hold their own, and they did in this game. And Irving had trouble pretty much no matter who was in front of him.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Bobby. Sherrod and I were talking about it. I felt like the no Marcus presence contributed twofold, both the no Marcus presence and knowing that there's so many people you can attack individually on the Nets on the floor. Celtics got into ISO ball again, looking for matchups instead of doing what they do best, and you don't have Marcus out there to settle things.
Yeah, and that's always a worry when you're trying to match up Hunt. I think the Celtics have done a good job getting it off the ball and in movement this year, and Brogdon talked a little bit about that in the locker room, but it lends itself to getting stagnant. I think it happened for both teams here in this game because they were both trying to do the same thing, go at Pritchard and Hauser, go at Curry and Harris, and I thought the Celtics did a little bit of a better job, except for between the third and the fourth quarters. Celtics only scored 13 points in the third. And then they went on a 4-20 stretch there between quarters. So, yeah, that can get you into some stagnancy. And Joe Mazzulla actually took credit for that after the game. He thought he should have stepped in and pulled them out of that rut and called some plays. And he said that one's on him. So he took credit for that.
Good. And again, anything that they do that ends up being a one-off, which in many cases it has, is fine, because you're not going to play 82 games clean where you're doing everything exactly the right way with full-on defensive intensity and, great ball movement, approaching 30 assists every single night. It's just shooting 50% from 3. It's not going to happen. You just don't want to see habits forming and regression with these guys. So you don't want to see a stretch of games where they kind of get away from what they've been doing we like this record-setting greatest offensive rating in the history of basketball version of the Celtics. Like, keep trying to do that. Don't fall out of what it is that's gotten you these ridiculously gaudy numbers through the first quarter of the season. Just don't forget yourself as far as that's concerned, because you're right. You've got guys who are supremely talented who are looking across, the floor at like that guy and like, oh man, just like, give me the ball. We've all done that. You see it, it's pickup style. Like this guy can't stay in front of me. Give me the ball. And they're right. But when you need a bucket here and there or down the stretch. You don't want that to be how your offense runs.
Yeah, what do you got on that, Sherrod? Mismatch hunting, stagnancy. Where do you see them do that in this game?
It's in their DNA. They can't help themselves. They can't help themselves because when you get to this point in the game, and gosh, you just do it without even realizing you're doing it. I mean, Jalen Brown and Tatum have, probably for most of their careers, have been the best player on the floor. The one guy that no one on the other team can guard. And the goal is to win. And if you can't guard me, I'm just going to do what comes naturally, which is attack you and finish. But it's clear that they're much more comfortable with their ball movement now than they were a year ago, where you're seeing more guys getting touches, more guys getting opportunities. But I thought against this Brooklyn team, I thought they did a little bit more matchup hunting than they normally do.
Is that Smart being out, like John said?
I do. I believe that has a lot to do with Smart being out, because one of his primary responsibilities is to not allow that to happen. And again, that's one of the big adjustments that Marcus has had to make with all the players around him now, is to figure out what exactly can he do to impact winning beyond defense. And I think part of that is his ability to simply get folks in the right places where they need to be, to get, instead of focusing on matchup, just focus on the right play at the right time, regardless of the matchup. Because if you really start focusing on the mismatches, you're thinking about that, and you're not just playing, and that makes it a lot easier to defend teams that aren't just playing when they're thinking too much. And sometimes I think the Celtics get in trouble with that. But the key with Marcus is he doesn't allow them to stay in that state too long. And I thought, again, his absence was definitely noticeable. But like they've been doing all season, when something is not right or someone is not where they need to be, someone else figures out a way to get through that and help them win. And I thought, like, Malcolm Brogdon,
I was just going to go there. Yep, he pulled them out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his plus minus, we're like, I think plus 16 or something like that when he was on the floor. And he didn't have a great scoring game, but he had a great pulse on what needed to be done when he was out there by whom.
Yeah, he had a 3 in the first to end a drought, layup in the second, got to the free throw line, another 3 in the second as well. But really, it was that rut I just talked about between the third and the fourth. He pulled them out of it with an and one at the end of the third, and he found Horford for 3 to end that last comeback by the Nets there. So it felt like every time he was able to get the ball in his hands, he did something with it. And that's been his power this year, whether it's with the bench or whether it's mixing in with the starters like he was able to do tonight without Smart. He's great. I mean, there's just nothing. It's crazy. It almost got overlooked over the summer, how big of an impact that was. Not in around Boston and on the show. We knew how seismic of an addition this would be, but it kind of paled in comparison to some of the other movement, at least in terms of a name around the league. And I think nationally went a little bit under the radar just how crucial that pickup is. And they're keeping it low, like the minutes. It's 20 minutes a game. They're trying to sort of manage him, it feels like, through the course of the regular season. But when he gets out there, he's making stuff happen in a hurry.
And it's a great option to have. Having a guy that can, whether he's starting, coming off the bench, he's going to make it an impact either way. Some guys need to have a very specific role. You know, he's not one of those guys. And to think of what they gave up to get him is just, again, that makes it all the sweeter if you're a Celtics fan. You didn't have to touch your core to get a core guy.
Neesmith is a starter. Neesmith's a starter right now.
Tice still hasn't played a game for Indiana.
No kidding.
Yeah. I think he had knee surgery.
Yeah. It's I mean, we were ecstatic over that. You know, we that was like you
moved
the
on from
Celtics
Nick
have won the
Stauskas,
championship when they
Nick Stauskas, Jawan Morgan. They just threw a bunch of roster guys in there. And that opened up room to sign some of the back end guys that have given them some good stuff this year, whether it's Vonleh or Justin Jackson hasn't played a ton, but it was nice to be able to get him in the mix there. And it was just a great move all around. You cleared off that Tice contract. That wasn't a great contract. And, you didn't love his play in the playoffs, John. So that was like a bonus in itself. Like, you might have had to move a pick just to get off Tice's money. And instead you're bringing back Brogdon in exchange and, throwing Neesmith out there, which, it was time to move on from Langford and Neesmith when they did.
It's fine. It's fine. It's you're look, the upshot, once again, to have the same conversation we've had, the upshot of playing the kids was you didn't feel like you had anything else worth trying. So the hope was, let's see if these guys turn into something, because what's the alternative? There wasn't a great one. That was the problem with those, with the team, certainly a couple of years ago and at points in time last year. And then you saw just how short that bench rotation was. Would it have been useful to have a guy or two? Yeah. But then you went out and you got Derek White, and that's what he was supposed to do in there. But you needed something there. They just never turned into that, and that's fine. It was just playing those guys versus other guys who you knew were uninspired to begin with anyway. But now you've got actual professional basketball players on your team, like with Derek White and Brogdon. It's just a different caliber of player where they're just able to do so much. And again, you're talking about how high functioning this Celtics team is and how cerebral they are in terms of the way that they're playing basketball, both ends of the floor. You have to know what you're doing, or else you're going to be lost out there when it both comes to moving the ball and making all the right reads and the off-ball movement and all of the screening and all of that's going in and the spacing that's going into their offense. And then with the defense and their switching and their rotations, you've got to be both physically good, but also a very cerebral player to be able to handle everything that's thrown at you on this team and be successful. And they have it across the board. That's what's insane, is how everybody gets it. You don't have that guy. It's like, every time you bring this guy in, he's just lost, or this tanks, or this drops. There just doesn't exist on this team. And that's what's
there's no Schroeder this time around.
There's no Schroeder. There's no Neesmith. You're going to play 22 seconds of defense, and then Neesmith just literally just runs into a person and fouls him with 1 second left on the clock. And like,
no, 1 through 15. Yeah, they all fit. And even if you had this,
it was always problems, whether it was Schroeder, Cantor. There's guys with just such limitations on things that they did. You're just like, oh man, when they're out there again, we always talk about surviving those minutes. You're trying to survive certain minutes with certain rotations out there.
No, you don't survive. You extend. And even in that game on Friday where they lost, there was a stretch where they didn't have Tatum out there, and Brown led a +2 push. It was either Wednesday or Friday. I forget which Heat game it was, but they're a positive team with Brown out there and Tatum sitting, and they have been all year. So they can facilitate through those moments. I thought the bench unit was great throughout this game as well. Really put some pressure on the Nets second unit. And, one guy, I don't know if we mentioned, or you guys mentioned him before I got on here, but Al, who's going to take a night off tomorrow, I'd assume, is really starting to turn it up defensively himself. I mean, he's switching, he's active, he's blocking shots around the rim. I think he had 3 blocks in this game, right? So he's kind of reaching his peak as the season goes along here defensively, and really being a cog in the middle. I think he's allowing 42% shooting when guys shoot against him. He didn't do much offensively in this game, as you see there, but as this team starts to turn the corner a little bit defensively, he's doing a lot of work. He's obviously the key to the switching. Yeah. And, he did some good stuff in this game, especially switching out on some of the guards.
Yeah.
Bobby, Durant, that was the play of the game.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was really, when you talk about the progress they made defensively in this game, I think Al was the catalyst. His ability to do all those things you said, Bobby. But the one thing that you touched on, I think, is the most important, is his ability to switch defensively. His ability to not allow himself to be put in positions where he can be exposed. I mean, whether it was Kevin Durant, whether it was Kyrie, whoever, Al didn't get completely smoked when that switch went down. He was able to hold his own, and that's what you need from the veteran. And on nights where he's not scoring, where he's not shooting, if he can do those other things, the defensive end of the floor, it more than makes up for what he's not doing offensively, because they got plenty of guys who can get shots. They don't have a lot of guys who can do what he's capable of defensively.
Agreed, and we'll see how they handle that absence again tomorrow. That should be a good situation for Blake to step
I know
into.
how you handle it.
How's that?
Come on.
Cornet.
Try again.
Blake. It's Blake.
No, keep trying.
Noah.
You going Noah?
No, none of you guys got it yet.
No chance of that happening.
Who is it? Rob. Nah, not yet. I actually just saw him coming out of the locker room, so he is on the trip. He scrimmaged this morning, and I think he got involved with some of the second unit guys there. Depth guys who scrimmaged in the morning before games. So It feels like he's kind of taken another step there in terms of moving out of that controlled environment. But I still think he probably needs to get through a walkthrough. And some of these, I don't know if they're going to practice out west. I think they'll probably have some room to practice once they get out there. So once he gets one of those, I don't know. We kicked around Golden State. Could it be even maybe that Phoenix game before the Golden State game? I think one of those two would make a lot of sense.
He's playing. He's coming.
You think Toronto tomorrow?
Who knows? Who knows?
That would be great.
Can't we let's just put it out there. Okay? It makes sense. Look, I said this earlier. Who knows what he needs? What he needs right now is just to be in game shape, but we talked about it a couple shows ago. The only way he gets in game shape is by playing games. So at this point, they're no longer physically worried about him. They only want him to get into game shape so he can go out there and be effective. At this point, when he's ready to go, he's just going to go. One of these days, he's just going to play. It could be tomorrow. It could be a couple of days from now, a week from now. It's just going to happen. The fact that they're no longer saying, we want to work him back, maybe a couple more weeks of conditioning and see. The fact that every update has been pretty close means just one day he's just going to show up in uniform. So why not not tomorrow?
It's almost like they're waiting for him to give the thumbs up.
That's what I said to Sherrod earlier. Today. Every update now is like, we're just going to make sure he's ready. I think they've given him medical clearance at this point. It's when are you ready, Rob? And when he's ready, that's it.
And I can understand if he's being a little bit hesitant about coming back too soon, because when you think about just his career trajectory up to this point, he's shown so much promise of being a truly elite, dare I say, all-star caliber big man in this league. And yet literally the only thing that you can seriously have a knock against him is staying healthy. And so for him, I think he wants to be absolutely 100% certain when he steps back out on the floor, he's ready to go, and he's ready to go for the long haul. When I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, he did mention that when he's back out there, he's missed enough games already, so he's got that behind him. He doesn't anticipate that he'll miss any more games because he's already missed so many. So that I think is why he's being real overly cautious about his return.
And that's what we say is like at this point. Like, I think every Celtics fan is totally prepared to live in a world where Rob comes in and plays 12 minutes, and that's it. A little stint coming off the bench in the first half and another one in the second half, and that's it.
Yeah,
and that's
just
fine.
Just
get a taste and start working your way back in there. Get used to the guys. Get used to playing, Get into some rotations. It can happen anytime, so who knows? Josue, you were just in talking to some of the guys. Why don't you give us an update out of the locker room, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, man. Jalen Brown. I'm going to lead with him. He was really open in this one, talking about his relationship with Kyrie Irving, who he says during his time in Boston, Kyrie's time in Boston, that they didn't always see eye to eye. They got into it a lot. So over the years, the relationship has gotten better, and obviously what they mean to the NBA Players Association and just making sure that things are happening fairly, right? Everything that went down between the Brooklyn organization and Kyrie, and Jalen, of course, lended his support in a big way, and he just pretty much talked about how the past few years things have changed, and he's still someone that he considers a friend, and someone that he can talk to in the same way Kyrie does with him. It's vice versa. So I thought that was really interesting. Didn't see that one coming. Sherrod, I'd love to hear you weigh in on this, because that's something that was sort of not spoken about, but you sort of got that vibe. I mean, obviously there were some instances where it just seemed like they just, Jalen, remember that game in Miami when he got into it with Marcus Morris, and then he was injured, he came back, lost his starting position with the team. It just we always wondered what that relationship was like, because it seemed like Jason Tatum and Kyrie Irving had a much better relationship, compared to Jalen Brown, who sort of had to retool his role in the team that season, right? And I'm talking about the year where Kyrie, his second season in Boston, his second and final season in Boston, where we weren't quite sure what the relationship was like, and I guess Jalen gave us some insight tonight.
Well, a couple things. First of all, Kyrie and Tatum had the whole Duke connection, so that put their relationship on a faster track to gel quicker than I think Kyrie with any other teammate because of that, having that common thread. But Jalen, one of the things to me, Jalen, there's his tough-minded stubbornness is both a blessing and a burden. It makes him who he is as a player, makes him a very durable player from a mental toughness standpoint. Because when you think about some of the things that he has had to manage and navigate, I mean, how many guys picked in the top 3 are booed on draft night? Jalen knows what that feels like. How many players, put up the kind of numbers that he puts up and is consistently seen as the other guy? And so Jalen manages all of that type of stuff with just a real cool, calm, collected, crushing style of play. But as far as his relationship with Kyrie, that's not surprising because remember, Kyrie wasn't exactly BFFs with most of the guys on the team. I mean, if you take Tatum out of the mix, I think guys respected him. And I think guys genuinely liked him, but you can respect and like someone and not want to work with him, or not be crazy about the working relationship. Well, and so, no, it doesn't surprise me that they had rough patches at all.
But I mean, that was out in the open. Every time Kyrie would say like those guys, they don't get it, and they've got room to grow, and they want it all at once, and this and that. Jalen's like, I know you're talking about me,
like
it
starts from the top. It doesn't start from the bottom. That's the quote that really,
yeah. He'd always say that,
right? But it was never by name though, right? It was always like out there, and that's why it was sort of.
We knew
who was talking about who, and Jalen would answer it publicly. Like, I don't think we benefit from guys going off and saying stuff about other people. We're better off just kind of keeping it here. So they clearly didn't see eye to eye. I don't love that they see eye to eye now. It's one thing to protect somebody in the role of your vice president of the Players Association and look out for their interests. I do think there's a beef there. I do think the Nets kind of played fast and loose with what they could do with Kyrie Irving and when he could come back. And we're just making stuff up as they went along. And if you're looking out for all players, you're absolutely going to be like, what are you guys doing now? Like, it was demeaning, it was excessive, and also it just didn't really have. There was no shape to it. It was just like I said,
no rationale at all.
No rationale at all. Just whatever they felt like it. So you're absolutely going to defend that. Different story. As far as like looking at Kyrie for guidance and things like that, honestly, stay the F away. Like I don't really want to hear it. I don't think that's the guy you want to be leaning on.
But here's the thing, John. I will say this about Jalen. Jalen, I think he's a smart enough guy to know that sometimes the counsel and guidance you have isn't so much what you should do, but what you shouldn't do. One of his first role models in the league, the guy that took him under his wing, was a dude by the name of Dwight Howard, who we all know Dwight is more than his share of knucklehead moments. And Dwight, I've talked with Dwight about this, and he opens up about that. And he used to tell me that when he talked with Jalen, he would say, this is some of the things I did well, but these are some of the things that I probably should have taken a mulligan on and not done. And that was part of his just the process that he had with Jalen. So I think Jalen is smart enough to know there's certain people that you have to have in your circle, if you will, who are examples of, some of the things you like and some of the things you don't like. People who are just complicated because life in itself is kind of complicated, kind of messy. I just wish that sometimes Jalen would be a little bit better in articulating the aspects that he's down with and the ones that he's not.
Yeah, be a little less vague sometimes.
Yeah.
This a little bit cryptic and a little bit vague sometimes to kind of like, I'm going to keep you guys guessing. Like, that doesn't help him by any means. That you're right. That's a good point.
If you remember, he did come out against Kyrie when he was making those comments against Boston during the first playoff series between these two. Yeah. So there was a moment where they split there. I think what he said about that first stint was true and makes a lot of sense in terms of how they played. The veteran young guy rift on this team. Josue always talks about the Marcus Morris shove that is in Miami. So I think there were a lot of different angles on that team and different personalities that clashed, and a lot of it got thrown on Kyrie.
And different agendas, lots of agendas. Play.
Like Kyrie's sort of the poster child of that team's dysfunction when there were more layers to it. So I think it says a lot about Jalen that they've been able to squash that and move on and connect and align on some things. And listen, we might agree on a lot of the things that he connects with him on, but I think it just sort of shows the growth of Jalen and what he's kind of moved on to in his career, because he can go out there and attack him on the court. Like I still remember that little transition bump that he laid on him in that series last year. I love where Jalen's at right now. I think he's sort of taking steps as a leader. Jason's taking steps as a leader. And that's still one of the things I look at with this team and say has made a major difference. Like they've been able to rally everybody, keep them on the same page, get them through some turmoil of their own early this season. And Jalen, I think, is shaking off some struggles from early in the season as well over the last week here. Like this is, like Brogdon said, like he's playing at an all NBA level right now.
Yeah,
we can stack it up a different time, but he's in that mix.
Yeah, it hit his stretch right now. And you're right. It's so funny when you talk about like struggles. All you're talking about is like some efficiency in some cases with
And
him.
turnovers,
like,
yeah.
And then the turnovers, which were just too many. But you're looking at the last few games, 34, 37, 26, 36, 25, 31, 25, 27.
Oh, scoring. He's been brutally
He's
consistent
just
this year.
pouring it in,
At scoring right now, he's as good as anyone in the league. He can just fill up that.
That's again,
sheet.
he's up. I mean, again, the conversation we had the other day, a couple of weeks ago about Jalen was like basically like, can we just all agree he's an absolute bucket machine, and that might be all he ends up being for the rest of his life, and that's incredible because that's the hardest thing to do in basketball, and that alone puts him in the all NBA conversation just simply for his ability to score, for how explosive he is getting to the paint, for how dangerous he is in transition, all of those things. He doesn't have to do another friggin' thing. He doesn't have to have another assist in his life. As long as he's doing that, making proper reads and getting buckets at the frequency he's getting it, great. Because right now he's an absolute killer. And when you have that, it's just such a problem on this team. I mean, it's just most teams just don't have it. We take it for granted because you've seen them for now the last few years. Most teams just don't have two guys that are like, oh my God, this guy too. It just is. It's unreal that they can go 30-30 on any given night, and it's not surprising at all. So, again, it's the Jalen night. It's the Jalen show. He's run it the last couple games. Tatum's been a little less efficient. He's had colder first halves. Hats off to Jalen because, you're going to give a lot of credit to him for, kind of keeping them in, these last, not keeping them in, but being the integral part in a lot of these games, recently with his scoring. He's just been crazy.
Yeah, nice to see them both shake off the offensive struggles and really defend in this game. Like I've been waiting for this team to put on a performance like that on that side of the ball. And you know what? It turned around for them at the end of the game offensively. Yeah. They really got rolling and slammed the door on Brooklyn.
That's the key. That's the key. That's what Jalen Brown also talked about. That's what led to this, that big scoring, for that big first quarter for him. And just overall, he's saying that the defense is going to trigger the offense. And that sort of was the case the last couple of games. And he said that that's what's going to determine if this road trip is going to be a success or not. Can the Celtics continue to do this night in and night out? Obviously, they got the second half of a back-to-back in Toronto, which is why they were really quick to get up out of here and catch that flight. But that's the key. That's something to keep a close eye on throughout this road trip. And as for Jason Tatum, I asked him about Jalen Brown and if these two have had any conversations about what Jalen's doing right now. And after a long pause, he said, man, I just say, hey, whatever is working. Maybe if you're wearing the same socks, if you're wearing something lucky, keep it going. Whatever it takes to keep this streak going because we're loving it right now. And, of course, we're going to need that energy throughout the course of the 6-game road trip.
And it's amazing. It's like you just look at it like, sure, yeah, Tatum didn't have a great score. He had his kind of his worst offensive game of the season against Miami last game. He plays an awful game, turns it over 5 times, and it goes to OT and they lose. Obviously, Jalen hits that miracle shot. Tonight he kind of started off cold as hell. He's got 9 turnovers. That's freaking horrible. Still ends up with 29 points and finds his way out of that. So it's again, but before that, it's just how quickly we forget. He's 49, 35, 30, 37. I mean, he was just killing people. So again, these little teeny dips, 1 game, 2 game, you just can't overreact to it. They're really friggin' good right now. You've got 2 all-stars, 2 potentially all-NBA players, 1 guy who's probably a top 2 MVP candidate right now. And then everything else is going well around them. So lots of reasons to be happy. Another game tomorrow in Toronto. None of you guys are going to Toronto. Is that correct?
Nope. Passport.
Bobby loves Canada.
I am.
Passport's
I'm
collecting
gonna
dust.
jump on. I'm gonna jump on the wheels and just catch a flight with the
Wait,
Celtics.
what? Are you gonna sneak onto the flight? I don't know, man. I think your secret's out right now. You're on live.
No, I gotta skip Toronto this time. But this is gonna be the year.
Oh, I thought he was doing it.
No, I believed you. I was like, wait,
Like,
what?
just walk in with Luke Cornett and say you're his cousin and just
I'll
get
walk
on the
behind him.
plane.
He's tall enough. They won't see me.
I thought you were sneaking your way onto the plane.
I
No.
believed you for a second. I'm like, you got that Luke hookup.
Let's just say this has to be the year those teams meet in the playoffs. 2020, we had so much fun with that series. Last year, it was
You
so
just want to go to
close.
Toronto. Get
You
outta
just
here.
like Canada.
No,
Yeah,
we'll have
you're
all the
just trying to
Raptors
make it-
fans in the chat. It will be great basketball.
We love
need
those
it.
guys.
Yeah, that's true.
It's been too long.
The bones of the show. You know, we still have a few Raptors fans who watch just because they were entertained back then. We are going to wrap this up though.
Beginning of an era.
I want to have
you know?
another cookie. So I'm gonna run in there.
How
Real
many
quick,
how many baker's dozen you got going over there, John? Jeez.
we made oatmeal scotchies tonight. Well, a half of the batch was oatmeal with butterscotch, and the other was oatmeal with chocolate chip.
Ooh,
The
okay.
butterscotch, if you've never had oatmeal and butterscotch combo, is
Oatmeal
phenomenal.
cookie, those are good.
It's
You like that, Sherrod?
that t-shirt.
oatmeal
Yeah, I love
butterscotch is a
oatmeal,
great
bro.
Has
great-
anyone
I co-sign on
received,
that. Totally
Yeah.
co-sign on that.
has
What,
anyone
oatmeal?
received phenomenal shirts yet?
They went out as a fact. I know that George sent them all out on Friday. We are short a few, so we're ordering more.
Tweet us when you get yours. We want to see them.
Yeah. Guys, honestly, yes, send us your pictures when you get them. I do want to see them. We'll share them on the show. That'll be fun, actually. And for goodness sake, if you're going to games, wear them. Okay, that would be great.
Green.
Yeah, that would be great.
The shirts are
Please
hot.
tackle him. Okay.
John got some. You got some fancy football on the line there.
Just my season, not a big deal. We'll tell you guys. A couple things again. Our sponsors, Athletic
You don't even
Greens.
care about our matchup, do you, John? He's on to his other league.
No, I've got some problems. I'm not Sherrod or Bobby, but I've got some problems. Check out Athletic Greens. Go to athleticgreens.com/garden for a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. Your first purchase. One stop, one scoop, 75 vitamins and minerals. Boom, cup of water. Drink it. You're done. All of your health needs taken care of. Make sure you check it out and use that URL right there, athleticgreens.com/garden, to get your free gift. And of course, Calm, one of our longest running sponsors, the #1 mental wellness app. Go to calm.com/garden and receive 40% off a premium subscription. And just a great tool to help you relax and get to bed and, relax your mind and your body. Once again, the Celtics beat the Nets in a very gratifying game, a game where you saw the return of the defense. Jalen Brown has a monster game. Jason Tatum, when it counts, frustrating Kevin Durant, frustrating Kyrie Irving, always brings smiles to our faces. So an all-in-all enjoyable way to start the trip. Tomorrow, Rob Williams makes his debut in
All
Toronto.
right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Fake
Come on,
news.
no
Fake news.
No fake news.
Fake news. But
Very
tomorrow they play Toronto. Who knows? It could be Rob. We're not sure. We appreciate you guys hanging. Quite a bunch, quite a large audience for a Sunday night, which is great. So again, thanks for hanging. I'll let you know this. Of course we're doing a show tomorrow. We are doing West Coast shows for those who can stay up, and that's not everybody, but it's certainly going to be me, and it's certainly going to be Bobby, and whoever else wants to jump on those. We will definitely be doing shows after those late West Coast games. So you can definitely look for us there. We never stop. Oatmeal raisin cookies are not the best.
They're up there though.
But I like them. More than most. A lot of people hate raisins at all costs.
Yeah.
I still think they work.
Raisins.
But oatmeal raisin though, they slap.
Yes.
I'll avoid the raisins. Yeah.
What do you eat around the raisin?
Yeah.
It's hard to do. Just surgery. Do an
Yeah,
autopsy, peel the raisins out, and then mash a
Just
cookie
don't
back
need to do
together.
That's the only time. It's the only time I don't
Get
mind.
another cookie.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, thanks, guys. I'm gonna go have some cookies. and we will see you guys tomorrow. Good night. Thanks to Sherrod Blakely, Josue Pavon, Bobby Manning, all working hard in Brooklyn.
Check us out. Celtics All Access segments coming.
Yes, sir.
Yep, there'll be some post-game segments, all of our interviews. Check it out on our YouTube channels. Of course, subscribe. Hit that little bell to get your notifications when a video posts and when we go live. Good night, everybody.